What if every human, from the dawn of civilization to this very moment, spoke the same language? No lost translations, no misunderstandings, no need for subtitles, interpreters, or language classes. From ancient emperors to modern teenagers, everyone, everywhere, could understand everyone else perfectly. Imagine a world where a single sentence spoken in Tokyo is instantly understood in Lagos, Rio, or New York. Where poetry needs no translation. Where diplomacy never gets lost in nuance. Where a child in India and a professor in Sweden read the same textbook in the exact same words. It sounds like utopia, but is it? Would a world with just one language unlock new kinds of problems, ones we've never had to imagine? Welcome to a world where humanity has always shared a single universal language, not through some modern reform or sudden invention, but from the very beginning. Whether it was spoken by early tribes around their fires or encoded in the first written tablets, this one language became the unshakable thread that wove together all human civilization. No linguistic confusion, no Babel, just seamless understanding from person to person, culture to culture, and continent to continent. At first glance, this might sound like the solution to almost every global issue we face: conflict, division, inequality, and ignorance. But look deeper, and a far more complex, surprising world begins to emerge. One shaped by unified expression, but also challenged by the lack of linguistic diversity, regional identities, and even independent thought. So what does this world actually look like? Let's start at the very beginning with the origin of this unified tongue, and how it reshaped the entire trajectory of human history. Where did this global language come from? Was it a gift or a consequence? In our timeline, language is the ultimate divider. A chaotic bloom of thousands of dialects shaped by geography, culture, and isolation. But in this alternate reality, that fragmentation never happened. The Tower of Babel never fell, metaphorically speaking. So how did this unified tongue emerge, and more importantly, persist across millennia? Let's rewind all the way to prehistory. In this timeline, early Homo sapiens didn't branch off into isolated tribes with divergent speech patterns. Instead, several factors aligned in rare and extraordinary ways. Human populations remained geographically clustered longer due to environmental patterns, allowing linguistic drift to stay minimal. A singular proto-language, perhaps born from a charismatic leader or revered spiritual figure, became dominant early on, not just as communication, but as a sacred, almost mythological gift. Trade, storytelling, and migration reinforced this one speech, not fractured it. As populations moved, they carried the language with pride, preserving it like a cultural relic. But it didn't stop there. Unlike in our world, where regional dialects naturally formed from environmental isolation and evolving needs, this society actively resisted divergence. Cultural norms reinforced the sanctity of speaking correctly. Regional accents were discouraged, not celebrated. Grammar and syntax were considered holy, not flexible. Over time, the language was carved into stone, not just literally, but socially. There were no rival tongues to challenge its dominance. And because humanity never splintered linguistically, they never lost each other, not across deserts, oceans, or empires. It's possible that in this world, early writing systems didn't just record history, they preserved linguistic purity. Schools, long before universities ever formed, taught standardized speech. Leaders and religious figures reinforced the single language doctrine, using it as a unifying and controlling force. The result? A globe where linguistic fragmentation simply never happened. Where the phrase language barrier holds no meaning, because there never was a barrier in the first place. Now, some might wonder, what about colonization, empire, and conquest? Wouldn't those forces still create cultural dominance? Not quite. In a one-language world, the playing field changes entirely. Conquest still happens, but communication isn't a weapon anymore. It's a given. There's no learning the language of the conqueror. everyone already speaks it. That doesn't mean everyone is equal, but it does mean that power is negotiated on far more transparent terms. Lies are harder to hide behind vague translations. Revolutions are easier to organize. And ideas spread instantly because they don't need to be decoded first. This also redefines religion. In our world, holy texts are often limited by translation, distorted by interpretation. But in this reality, the words of prophets, philosophers, and poets are understood exactly as they were intended across the entire world. Every scripture, every law, every poem, word for word, soul to soul. Still, a question looms. Was this language's origin purely natural or something else? In more mystical corners of this reality, some believe the universal language was a gift, bestowed by gods, aliens, or even artificial beings from a forgotten pre-human civilization. Others whisper that it's not Earth's native language at all, but a foreign code planted here long ago. But whether divine, alien, or just evolution's rarest fluke, the truth is this: one language shaped humanity from the roots up. No alternative words, no rival scripts, just a single shared voice. And that changes everything. So if every human spoke the same words from the start, how did that affect what we learned, how we thought, and how we taught the next generation? In our world, education is often a slow, fragmented process. Children spend years decoding multiple languages, learning to read and write in one tongue while speaking another at home, sometimes struggling to grasp ideas simply because they're lost in translation. But in a world with a universal language, the educational landscape is completely transformed. From the moment a child utters their first words, they're already speaking the same language as the greatest minds on earth. The same words spoken in the home are the ones found in textbooks, university lectures, historical records, and scientific discoveries. There's no linguistic gap between generations, regions, or institutions. Knowledge is instantly accessible, not just in principle, but in practice. Imagine a 4-year-old in rural Nepal or an 8-year-old in the Amazon having access to the exact same vocabulary, concepts, and definitions as a physicist in Geneva or a surgeon in Tokyo, without needing any translation or adaptation. That doesn't just equalize access, it accelerates development. Learning materials can be shared globally without delay. No more years spent localizing educational software, printing translations, or training bilingual instructors. A curriculum written in Paris can be taught the next day in Nairobi. A documentary produced in Brazil can be instantly understood in Mongolia. An open-source biology module uploaded in Cairo can be immediately integrated into classrooms in New Zealand. And it's not just about speed, it's about depth. Because when everyone understands the same words in the same way, it becomes easier to focus on the meaning behind them. Abstract thinking develops faster. Children grasp nuance earlier. Vocabulary grows not from memorizing foreign equivalents, but from exploring deeper levels of conceptual understanding. This, in turn, reshapes the entire purpose of school. Language classes don't exist, not in the traditional sense. Instead of teaching how to communicate, schools focus entirely on what to communicate: ethics, problem-solving, creativity, critical thinking. Rhetoric and persuasion evolve into master-level skills, because when everyone speaks the same, what you say and how you say it become your only tools. Students begin collaborating across countries as if they're across the hall. Virtual classrooms aren't limited to regional clusters, they're truly global. Kids debate history with students from 5 continents at once, without anyone having to stop and say, "Wait, what does that word mean in your language?" And the implications go deeper still into cognitive development itself. In our timeline, bilingualism and multilingualism offer cognitive benefits: increased memory retention, mental flexibility, and better problem solving. But in this alternate world, those same benefits emerge through depth, not translation. Children don't switch between languages. They switch between conceptual frameworks, advanced disciplines, or rhetorical styles within the same tongue. In essence, the mind is freed from the burden of code switching and redirects that energy toward higher cognitive functions. But there's also a consequence. Without the challenge of learning multiple languages, children may lose some of the mental plasticity that multilingualism encourages. There's no exposure to radically different syntactic structures, tonal systems, or conceptual metaphors embedded in foreign languages. Everyone learns to think alike, efficiently, yes, but also uniformly. And this creates a different kind of risk: intellectual conformity. When everyone learns in the same language, from the same pool of ideas, creativity might become narrower. Education becomes faster. But is it also more standardized? Are there fewer unique ways of seeing the world? Do we begin to think in predictable patterns? Still, the benefits are undeniable. Illiteracy is virtually eradicated. Teaching resources are universal. Collaboration knows no border. And the time once spent translating ideas is now used expanding them. This unified education system doesn't just create smarter individuals. It creates a shared global consciousness, a baseline understanding of the world that unites billions of people in the same intellectual conversation. But if the classroom is unified, what happens to culture? Do we lose identity when we lose linguistic diversity? In our reality, language is one of the deepest markers of cultural identity. It's more than just words, it's worldview. It's how we tell stories, preserve traditions, mourn, celebrate, and dream. Languages shape how we think, what we value, and even how we perceive time, space, and emotion. So what happens to culture when that diversity of language never existed? In this one-language world, cultural identity evolves along very different lines. There are still regions, customs, foods, dances, and beliefs. But without linguistic uniqueness, something fundamental is missing. There's no tonal Chinese poetry, no French philosophical flourishes, no Arabic calligraphic elegance, no Swahili proverbs, rich in metaphor. Every human tradition is expressed through the same linguistic vessel: one tone, one rhythm, one script. Does this flatten culture? Not exactly, but it compresses it. Traditions still emerge, but they're shaped more by action and symbolism than by verbal expression. A wedding ceremony in South Africa and one in Japan might look vastly different in aesthetic, but both use the same words for love, union, and commitment. Oral traditions, songs, myths, epics survive, but their flavor becomes more universal, less regional. Take humor, for example. In our world, it's often tied to linguistic quirks, puns, and double meanings. But in this reality, humor would evolve through context, timing, and physicality, not linguistic nuance. You'd never say it's funnier in the original language because there is no other language. And while that may seem like a relief, no more jokes lost in translation, it also strips away local flavor. The kind of identity that comes from saying something in your own ancestral tongue. Even names change. In our world, names carry cultural markers: Raj, Yuki, Ahmed, Marielitas. They speak of lineage, geography, and history. But in a one-language world, naming conventions likely converge into global trends, adopted through shared media and fashion. Over time, individual identity becomes tied less to region and more to personality, profession, or ideology. Cultural expressions, such as music, art, and fashion, remain vibrant. But the local dialect of experience, how people uniquely express joy, grief, resilience, becomes less distinct. Regional chants, lullabies, ceremonial chants, all spoken in the same tongue, start to feel familiar everywhere. There's a positive side, of course. Travelers don't feel alienated. Immigrants don't face a language barrier. Cultural exchange isn't bottlenecked by translation. Stories from any nation become instantly global. Imagine a child in Vietnam growing up reading myths from Peru, word for word in the original text, without needing a translator or adapted version. Ancient scrolls in Ethiopia, Viking sagas, or Aboriginal Dreamtime tales, all absorbed as intended by anyone, anywhere. This interconnectivity builds a sense of shared myth, a unified human story. But in doing so, the lines between cultures blur. Over generations, cultural distinctions begin to bleed into each other. A dance that started in Samoa might now be practiced in Finland. A wedding ritual from Morocco becomes common in Iceland. The world becomes a tapestry without seams. Beautiful, yes, but also dangerously close to becoming monochrome. And there's another, more insidious risk. In our world, linguistic diversity protects cultural autonomy. If a culture controls its language, it controls its narrative. But in a single language world, who controls the language controls the culture. If a central authority dictates grammar, rewrites vocabulary, or alters meaning, they rewrite reality for everyone. Language becomes a tool, not just for unity, but for influence and control. When dissent and conformity happen in the same language, there's nowhere to hide. So while this unified world may be rich in connectivity, it must constantly battle against cultural erosion. The slow fading of unique perspectives under the weight of a dominant, standardized voice. But what happens when this singular language steps into the realm of politics, power, and global decision-making? In our fragmented world, language is both a bridge and a weapon. Treaties collapse over mistranslations. Alliances stumble on miscommunications. Propaganda flourishes when meanings are twisted. And diplomacy is often a slow dance of interpreters, nuance, and carefully worded ambiguity. But in a world with one universal language, diplomacy doesn't just change, it evolves into something fundamentally new. Every political leader, from presidents to warlords, speaks the same tongue. There are no interpreters standing between foreign ministers. No risk of double meaning or missed subtext. Negotiations happen in real time. Words are exchanged directly, clearly, and instantly. This might sound like a recipe for peace. And in many cases, it is. Misunderstandings don't spiral into war. Agreements are transparent. International organizations like the UN operate with unprecedented speed and clarity. Multinational treaties are written once, read once, and understood the same way by every signatory. But the real twist? With full understanding comes full exposure. There's no hiding behind vague rhetoric. Every lie is easier to spot. Every contradiction is visible. Every promise can be tracked, quoted, and verified without translation errors mudding the waters. In this world, truth and deception become easier to detect because words carry the same weight everywhere. Debates over what did they mean are obsolete. As a result, global politics becomes less about interpretation and more about intention. Who meant what and why? It's no longer possible to claim you misunderstood me because everyone speaks the same language, literally. And that also means propaganda must evolve. In our world, political manipulation often thrives through targeted language, coded terms, dog whistles, or region-specific slogans. But in this one-language reality, those tactics lose power. A populist in Argentina and a dictator in Eastern Europe can no longer tailor language to manipulate a local population without everyone else immediately understanding their message too. So propaganda doesn't disappear, but it has to get smarter. More emotional, more psychological. Less about twisting words and more about manipulating how words are used. Tone, repetition, framing. Language is no longer a wall to be climbed. It's a tool everyone can pick up. Meanwhile, governance changes dramatically at every level. Constitutions once tied to national languages become globalized blueprints. Democracy spreads faster because civic knowledge is no longer trapped in translation. Authoritarianism, ironically, becomes harder to maintain because censorship and misdirection require linguistic gatekeeping, which no longer exists. International law becomes enforceable across borders with less ambiguity. No more legal loopholes due to translation differences. One phrase means one thing to everyone. Even elections become globalized in their influence. A political ad in one country can go viral worldwide, reaching not just citizens, but potential allies, enemies, and observers across the globe, all in the same language. Every speech has global weight. Every scandal is universally legible. And what about espionage? In our world, language barriers offer natural shields. Intelligence gathering often relies on understanding obscure dialects or encrypted communication methods. But in a one-language world, spies must evolve. The barrier isn't in decoding language, it's in interpreting intent. Code words and emotional cues, because everyone understands the literal meaning. But here's the catch. Just because people speak the same language doesn't mean they share the same values. So conflict still exists. Greed, ideology, power struggles. But now, battles are fought with perfect clarity. Wars are not started over misunderstandings. They're started because of clear choices, ambitions laid bare, threats unambiguous, diplomacy exhausted in real time. And that's a double-edged sword. Peace is easier to negotiate, but war, when it comes, is more deliberate than ever. Finally, there's the matter of global governance. In a world where language no longer divides us, the idea of a unified global government becomes far more plausible. Communication isn't the barrier, it's ideology, economics, and national identity. Still, the infrastructure of such a government, shared laws, real-time collaboration, unified messaging, is already built into the linguistic system. And so this world teeters on a razor's edge, one step closer to total unity, one misstep away from total surveillance and control. But while politics thrive in clarity, the real explosion happens elsewhere, in the realm of human progress. Science, technology, and innovation ignite like never before. Language has always been the gatekeeper of knowledge. Every scientific breakthrough, from Newton's laws to Einstein's theories, has had to be translated, adapted, and distributed across languages, slowing global adoption and creating uneven progress. But in this one-language world, there's no lag, no translation errors, no localization bottlenecks. Every discovery becomes instantly global. A young engineer in Ghana reads a research paper from Iceland the moment it's published, and understands it as clearly as the person who wrote it. A biologist in Chile collaborates with a researcher in Vietnam without ever needing to rephrase a concept. Medical protocols developed in Singapore can be deployed in Nigerian hospitals the next day with zero reinterpretation. This world's progress is measured not in decades, but in months. And the reason is simple: pure, unbroken transmission of thought. In our world, even a single word, like theory, can create confusion across languages and cultures. In science, theory means a rigorously tested, peer-reviewed framework. In casual conversation, it might mean a hunch or guess. Now imagine if that distinction never existed. Imagine a world where every term, every formula, every scientific law is defined once, and that definition is never lost, never diluted. The result? Fewer misunderstandings in global research collaborations. Standardized education in science and engineering. A faster feedback loop between innovation, testing, and deployment. Now picture the internet in this world. One language, one platform of human knowledge. Social media, video tutorials, open source forums, and scientific databases are all globally accessible without subtitles, plugins, or AI translators. Knowledge becomes a shared resource, not a regional advantage. Open source collaboration reaches unimaginable heights. Engineers in 20 countries simultaneously code in the same language, literally and metaphorically. Every bug fix, every contribution, every breakthrough is immediately readable by everyone. Programming itself becomes simpler, more accessible. Even universal coding languages might evolve directly from the universal spoken one. And that accessibility means inclusion. In our world, indigenous communities, rural populations, and non-English speakers often miss out on cutting-edge information. Not because they're incapable, but because the knowledge isn't translated or prioritized for them. In this unified language world, no one is left behind. The brain power of billions is fully unleashed. A girl in a remote village with internet access can understand and contribute to the latest NASA findings. A disabled inventor in a forgotten corner of the world can share a revolutionary idea and be understood instantly by experts on another continent. But this explosion of collective intelligence doesn't stop at science. It spreads to technology at every level. Devices are designed once and used globally. No need for regional firmware or interface translation. Manuals, guides, support systems, all streamlined, universal, and scalable. Innovation doesn't start in one place and ripple out. It erupts everywhere at once. Technological standardization also becomes the norm. In our world, regional language settings create fragmentation, different voice assistants, keyboards, or interfaces. But in this one-language reality, a single voice command works for everyone. Every AI assistant, from household robots to medical diagnostic tools, is trained on the same language dataset, the same one spoken by humans. This means AI development is faster, more accurate, and deeply integrated with human users. Machine learning models learn not from messy, inconsistent language patterns, but from a perfectly unified stream of global data. Natural language processing isn't just good, it's flawless. But as with every great leap forward, there's a cost. The absence of linguistic barriers removes a natural buffer between cultures, slowing the erosion of critical thought. In our world, the need to translate often forces people to pause to consider meaning. In a one-language world, messages, true or false, spread at the speed of instinct. Virality becomes more powerful, so do lies. And when every human speaks the same, the spread of misinformation, ideologies, and dangerous technologies also accelerates. A digital weapon or rogue idea can propagate worldwide in seconds, understood clearly by all, misused by many. This forces the world to grapple with a new kind of challenge. How do you filter, verify, and govern knowledge in a system where everyone understands, but not everyone agrees? Still, the potential is staggering. This is a world where humans might reach Mars, not in 100 years, but in 20, where cancer cures, clean energy breakthroughs, and quantum computing emerge not from one lab, but from collaborative storms of intelligence across continents, where humanity, for the first time in its history, thinks together. But what happens when all this knowledge meets the real world of trade, jobs, and labor? In a world where everyone can understand one another, how does the global economy transform? Language barriers have always been silent border walls. In our world, they define where someone can work, who they can collaborate with, and what economic opportunities they can access. A brilliant mechanic in India may never be able to work in Germany. Not because of lack of skill, but because they don't speak the language. But in this alternate reality, those walls don't exist. And that changes everything. From the earliest days of trade, merchants across ancient cities and continents never had to negotiate with gestures or rely on translators. Every contract, price tag, and trade route was navigated with ease because everyone spoke the same language. Markets expanded fast. Trade exploded early. There was never a need to conquer language to enter new markets. A farmer in one region could sell goods to a city hundreds of miles away with no need for a translator or intermediary. The Silk Road. It's not just a route, it's a seamless economic web that evolved into a truly global economy centuries ahead of schedule. Fast forward to the industrial era. Factories in one country could be instantly coordinated with supply chains across the world. Innovations weren't delayed by the time it took to translate instruction manuals or technical schematics. Labor mobility became frictionless. A technician in Brazil could land a job in Korea, show up on the floor, and start work immediately. Because the safety protocols, training modules, and work culture were expressed in a language they already knew. This universal fluency births a hyperfluid global workforce. People move for passion, not necessity. A robotics expert from Nigeria can freelance on a project in Denmark, then shift to a startup in Chile without ever hitting a linguistic ceiling. Global companies no longer need to build separate training programs or onboarding systems for different regions. One system fits all. Okay. And that streamlining of talent creates an economic boom. Multinational corporations grow faster, with fewer friction points between departments across countries. Small businesses scale globally in months, not years, because advertising, customer support, and online presence don't need localization. Digital nomads become the norm. Content creator, app developer, or teacher can work from anywhere and reach everyone. This isn't just about mobility, it's about efficiency. Bureaucracies shrink. Customer service becomes universal. No more Press 2 for English. No more misfiled visas, misread policies, or expensive document translations. Everything from taxes to healthcare to online banking works the same way, everywhere. Now consider economic development. In our world, less developed nations often face language-based disadvantages, fewer resources in native tongues, less access to global networks, and dependency on translated tools. But in this one-language world, that gap never opens. Everyone has equal access to economic knowledge, entrepreneurship materials, and financial systems. A young adult in a rural region can understand how to open a crypto wallet, launch an e-commerce store, or apply for an international grant without needing to learn a second language. The economic uplift is staggering. Microloans are understood clearly. Contracts are signed without misinterpretation. Job listings are global, not local. Online education leads directly to jobs, anywhere. But there's a shadow side. With no language barrier to slow things down, competition becomes relentless. The job market isn't just local, it's planetary. A single position might get 100,000 applicants from every corner of the globe. All perfectly qualified, all perfectly fluent. And where language once protected regional economies, now the lowest bidder wins every time. Wages race to the bottom unless carefully regulated. Job displacement becomes rapid. Entire industries must evolve to stay viable in an environment where borders mean nothing and labor flows like water. This forces a new kind of economic ethic. Do we prioritize local employment or global talent? Do we protect industries from international pressure or embrace full economic openness? And who sets the rules in a world where every player can understand them equally? Moreover, economic inequality shifts. It's no longer based on language access, but on infrastructure, digital access, and policy. A country's success depends on how fast it can plug its people into the global network, not how many translators it hires. And perhaps most radically, money itself becomes more unified. Cryptocurrencies or digital currencies gain faster adoption, because financial systems don't have to translate interfaces, policies, or regulatory language. A transaction in Kenya looks identical to one in Poland or Japan. Smart contracts, written in the universal tongue, are enforceable and readable anywhere. In this world, the global economy isn't just interconnected, it's indivisible. But even with wealth flowing and borders dissolving, something far more human comes next. How does this linguistic unity affect empathy, conflict, and our emotional connections to one another? In a world where every person speaks the same language, there are no subtitles in conversations, no mispronounced idioms, no awkward mistranslations. From the moment two strangers meet, no matter their culture, background, or beliefs, they can understand each other perfectly. It sounds like the end of conflict, but the truth is more complicated. First, let's explore the positive side, and it's powerful. Without language barriers, empathy scales up. You can hear someone's pain, frustration, or joy with full clarity, and respond with your own thoughts, free of hesitation or doubt. Refugees can tell their stories without an interpreter. Victims of injustice can broadcast their truth in real time. Protesters, survivors, whistleblowers, they're not silenced by language anymore. Emotions become a global language, but now they're expressed literally, with exact words that everyone can grasp. In our world, we often judge others because we don't fully understand their context. We fill in blanks, assume, stereotype. But in this one-language world, those blanks don't exist. You can ask a stranger why they believe what they believe, and they can answer fully. No lost nuance, no cultural guessing. This leads to more emotional intelligence across societies. Children grow up reading real stories from every corner of the planet. Personal narratives become a shared human archive. Documentaries, novels, even casual conversations all contribute to an ongoing global dialogue. Hate speech doesn't get lost in a foreign language anymore, but neither does the voice of hope. When disaster strikes, an earthquake, a flood, a civil war, those affected don't need the world to wait for translations. Their pleas are understood instantly. Aid moves faster. Compassion becomes immediate. This unified world is more emotionally synchronized than ours. However, here's where the complexity begins, because when everyone understands each other, there's no room for excuses. In our timeline, cultural misunderstanding often softens the edges of disagreement. A mistranslated phrase can be forgiven. A misheard statement can be clarified. But in a one-language world, every insult, every threat, every act of hate is crystal clear. There's nowhere to hide. And that transparency, while honest, can also intensify division. A racist remark in a town square in one country is no longer a local issue. It's heard, understood, and condemned worldwide instantly. A speech that might once have stirred nationalistic pride in one region now provokes global backlash. Words once confined by geography now ignite planet-spanning firestorms of reaction. This opens the door to a new kind of conflict. Conflict not born of misunderstanding, but of pure, unfiltered opposition. And while wars based on miscommunication may vanish, ideological wars grow sharper. Arguments are no longer diffused by semantics. They're clarified by them. In debates, negotiations, and confrontations, there is no middle ground to be misread. Only lines drawn clearly in the same language. Even within families and relationships, the emotional precision of language cuts both ways. There's no "you misunderstood me." Every confession, every betrayal, every heartfelt apology lands with full weight. Because nothing gets lost in expression. But ironically, that precision can hurt more. Words once softened by cultural ambiguity now land with surgical clarity. A breakup, a harsh critique, a childhood trauma relived. It all hits harder when the words are universally understood with no cushion of misunderstanding. On a broader scale, diplomacy becomes more honest, but also more brutal. No more veiled threats. No more artful dodging of responsibility. Leaders must speak plainly or be exposed. Peace treaties are easier to negotiate, but harder to betray. Because their terms are universally known and memorialized by the entire planet. Social media becomes a battlefield of raw truth and rapid emotional contagion. A viral story can galvanize movements in hours. But a single misunderstood post, now clearly understood, can destroy reputations worldwide. And here lies the ultimate paradox of this world. Understanding does not guarantee agreement. You can understand someone's pain and still not care. You can hear someone's truth and still reject it. You can comprehend someone's belief and still fight against it. But now, in this world, you must do so consciously. Not from ignorance, but from choice. And that changes the moral weight of every decision. Do you help the stranger in need now that you understand exactly what they're asking for? Do you reject the ideology now that you know exactly what it stands for? Do you forgive the person who hurt you when their apology is unambiguous? In a single language world, every moral choice becomes deliberate. So if human connection evolves in this raw, precise emotional landscape, What happens to our deepest forms of creative expression? Art, literature, music, when everything is instantly understood. Art is the soul's language, but in our world, it's deeply shaped by the tongues we speak. Language doesn't just carry meaning, it carries rhythm, emotion, subtlety. It defines how we build metaphors, how we structure poetry, how we deliver punchlines, and how we evoke tears. So what happens to human expression when there's only one language? On the surface, this seems like a dream for artists. A poem written in one part of the world is read exactly as intended in every other. There's no loss in translation, no artistic intent filtered through localization. A line of poetry, a story, a song lyric. Its emotion, wordplay, and cadence hit globally with perfect clarity. The entire planet becomes a single audience. Musicians don't need regional adaptations. Authors don't worry about foreign rights or reinterpreted dialogue. Every book is instantly a global release. Every film resonates deeply with all viewers. No subtitles required. A stand-up comedian from Nairobi can perform in Amsterdam, Buenos Aires, or Seoul without altering a single word. This creates a truly planetary cultural moment. Bestsellers are truly global phenomena. Albums don't break into foreign markets. They arrive there fully understood on day one. Theater, once bound by location and language, becomes a shared experience for billions. And it isn't just about fame. It's about connection. A child in Mongolia grows up reading the same bedtime stories as a child in Mexico. Teenagers in Denmark and Ghana cry over the same song lyrics. Elderly couples in Canada and Nepal watch the same romantic drama and share the same ache. Art stops being regional. It becomes human. But here's the paradox. In a world where everything is understood, what happens to mystery? In our world, part of art's power lies in its cultural specificity. A haiku in Japanese carries a structure, tone, and silence unique to its origin. A French novel plays with language in ways that simply don't exist in English. An Arabic poem might flow with spiritual weight that defies direct translation. In this one-language world, those linguistic textures are gone. Every metaphor is obvious. Every pun is universal. Every clever wordplay is immediately grasped. And that leads to a new creative challenge. How do you make people feel something deeply when nothing is hidden? Artists have to evolve. Subtlety becomes an endangered art. They can't rely on exoticism or the allure of foreignness. Instead, they turn inward, playing with emotional precision, structural experimentation, and psychological depth to stand out in a world where everyone understands everything. And then there's the danger of monotony. With everyone using the same tools, same words, same structure, same idioms, will creativity start to converge? Will song lyrics, movies, and books start to sound the same? Will language itself begin to limit imagination rather than fuel it? This triggers a cultural counterforce, the emergence of sub-languages within the language. Slang code words, new rhythms. Artists start to invent layers of meaning, creating complexity not through different languages, but through symbolism, structure, and cultural reference. You might speak the same language as someone, but still not fully understand their message unless you're part of the same subculture, movement, or creative circle. And that's where the new diversity lives, not in vocabulary, but in context. A song lyric might hit differently in New York than in Jakarta. A play might mean one thing to a grieving widow, another to a revolutionary youth. The words are the same, but meaning now lives in experience, not translation. This also transforms humor. Without language barriers, jokes don't get lost. They land hard, but they also spread fast and burn out quickly. Comedians must evolve to stay unpredictable in a world where everyone gets the joke immediately. Satire becomes sharper. Irony becomes more layered. Timing and performance become the battlegrounds of originality. And here's a final twist. With no translation required, AI-generated art flourishes. Machines can now create novels, songs, and scripts that are readable by everyone without any need for localization. This democratizes creativity, but it also means human artists must work harder to stand out from perfection. So, art survives. Art thrives. But it adapts to a world where its power lies not in what is said, but how it's said, because in a world where everything is clear, what truly matters is what still surprises us. But this cultural clarity comes at a deeper cost. Is a world of one language really a utopia? Or does it come with a dark undercurrent of control, homogeneity, and lost complexity? A world unified by one language might seem like the pinnacle of progress. Seamless communication, shared knowledge, universal understanding. But what if beneath that polished surface lies something more unsettling? Because while one language eliminates division, it also eliminates difference. Let's begin with monotony. Language isn't just a tool. It's the expression of culture's soul. In our world, every tongue carries a different way of thinking. The structure of a sentence in Navajo can teach you how a people understand time. The tonal layers of Mandarin reflect a dance between subtlety and emphasis. In Arabic, a single root can bloom into dozens of meanings, each with emotional weight. But in a world with one tongue, that rich cognitive variety is gone. Everyone thinks in the same linguistic rhythms. Constructs become standardized. Wordplay becomes predictable. Storytelling, no matter how emotionally deep, risks becoming formulaic. When every novel is written in the same voice, every speech delivered in the same cadence, every prayer uttered in the same phrasing, the world risks entering a creative plateau. Then there's the more ominous layer, control. In our timeline, linguistic diversity is a kind of protection. When power becomes oppressive, languages can shield communities. Activists can organize in native dialects. Histories can be preserved in secret scripts. Resistance often lives in untranslatable words, whispered by those who refuse to be absorbed. But in a one-language world, control the language, and you control the world. If the government, an elite institution, or even a single tech entity decides what words mean, how they're used, or which phrases are acceptable, they effectively control reality itself. There's no alternative dialect, no underground vocabulary, no place for cultural resistance to hide. Censorship becomes terrifyingly simple. You don't need to burn books, you just update the dictionary. Want to suppress dissent? Redefine freedom. Want to erase history? Change how it's described. Want to turn empathy into weakness? Alter the connotation of compassion. And everyone will understand those changes immediately. In this world, even the illusion of freedom can be weaponized. Words become standardized, not negotiated. And in a society where language is identical everywhere, groupthink spreads fast. Individuality becomes harder to express when everyone speaks the same mental framework. Even memory becomes vulnerable. In our world, historical trauma is often preserved through oral traditions, passed down in local languages. These stories remain authentic because they are told in the words of those who live them. But in a one-language world, all historical memory is filtered through the same vocabulary, the same syntax, the same grammatical lens. There's no room for linguistic rebellion. No room for alternate histories. Only the official version, perfectly legible to all. And what about power dynamics? Someone has to decide the rules of this one language. Its grammar, spelling, tone, evolution. Who updates it? Who controls the dictionary? Who teaches the teachers? In a world unified by language, the gatekeepers of meaning become more powerful than any army. A regime doesn't need to outlaw dissent. It just has to redefine what dissent means. Even science and philosophy suffer. When everyone thinks in the same structure, innovation risks becoming linear. Creativity slows. Intellectual progress becomes less about radical new ideas and more about refining existing ones. And here's the darkest thought. If every human speaks the same, Then misunderstandings don't cause conflict anymore. Intent does. A lie is no longer a matter of misinterpretation. It's a weapon used consciously. Hate speech is no longer veiled. It's deliberate and undeniable. Control isn't silent. It's spoken aloud in a voice everyone understands and cannot escape. This is the irony of unity through language. What brings us together can also make it easier to be controlled, manipulated, and standardized. In such a world, we don't just lose words, we lose worldviews. Okay? And that's the hidden cost of perfect communication. But now, let's pull back. Let's compare this hyper-connected, linguistically unified world with our own complex, messy, multilingual reality. What does this alternate history reveal about us and the way we communicate now? Step back from the alternate world for a moment. Imagine waking up tomorrow and suddenly, every conversation, every song, every book, every news report. You understand all of it, perfectly. Every human now speaks your language. Every stranger is instantly knowable. Every question has an answer that doesn't need to be decoded. Sounds like a gift, but would it still feel human? Because in our reality, the messy, multilingual one, we live in a world shaped by the challenge of understanding. And that challenge, as frustrating as it can be, is what drives empathy, curiosity, and humility. In the one-language world, unity is achieved at the cost of complexity. But in our world, complexity breeds richness. Think about the first time you heard someone sing in a language you didn't understand and still felt it in your chest. Think about the joy of learning a foreign phrase and realizing it captured a feeling your own language never quite could. Think about the patience, the effort, the trust it takes to listen to someone whose words don't come easy to you, and the beauty in that shared effort. In our world, understanding is not instant. It's earned. It's forged through effort. And that makes it precious. Yes, we struggle with communication. Mistranslations cause conflict. Accents are mocked. Dialects are dismissed. Opportunities are hoarded by those who speak dominant languages. But at the same time, language diversity protects nuance, culture, identity, and resistance. It allows a grandmother in rural China to pass down a legend no one else can tell. It allows poets in Beirut to express grief in ways English simply can't. It allows children in Brazil to joke in slang so vibrant it feels alive. Our linguistic mess is our humanity, in all its tension and color. In the alternate world, humanity is synchronized like a perfect orchestra. But in our world, it's jazz. Improvised, clashing, surprising, full of dissonance and brilliance. Even technology, as it advances, doesn't eliminate our differences. Real-time translation, subtitles, AI-driven localization, they help, yes. But they also show us what we still long for, the ability to understand and be understood without losing ourselves. And perhaps that's the most important reflection of all. Because the goal isn't really one language. It's one connection, formed not through forced uniformity, but through deliberate reaching across differences. We live in a world where people choose to learn other languages, not because they have to, but because they want to understand. We build bridges out of words, not walls. And every time we try to communicate across a divide, we prove something powerful. That diversity doesn't stop us from uniting. It's what makes unity real. So while that alternate Earth might move faster, collaborate cleaner, and avoid certain conflicts, it may also never know the raw, intimate, fragile magic of hearing someone say, in a language you barely understand, "I see you. I hear you. I'm trying." And maybe that's worth keeping. So what do we make of this? Is a world with one language our next step, or a dream better left unrealized? In a world where humanity has always spoken one language, we find a civilization that is more synchronized, more connected, and more collaborative than anything we've ever known. Wars are fewer. Misunderstandings are rare. Knowledge moves at the speed of thought, and the barriers that once fractured our species have all but vanished. But perfection comes at a price. The loss of linguistic diversity means the loss of countless worldviews, each a window into how different people see, feel, and describe reality. It means uniformity, where there was once vibrant distinction. It means a global civilization that understands itself perfectly, but may no longer question itself deeply. And so we're left with a haunting realization. Unity doesn't always require sameness. Sometimes it's the act of translation, the willingness to struggle through misunderstanding that creates the strongest human bonds. We chase connection not in spite of difference, but because of it. And maybe that's the real strength of our world today. Not that we all speak the same language, but that we try to understand each other, even when we don't. So now it's your turn. What language do you wish the whole world spoke? Or do you think the very idea of one language for all is a step too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you would keep or change about how we communicate as a species. If you found this journey through alternate history thought-provoking, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves deep what-ifs just like you do. And remember, even in a world of 1,000 languages, the desire to connect is universal.